What is your promise? Why are you in business? How do you expect to grow?
This is The Hook, a show focused on branding, marketing, and business development.
You brand to inspire, not to sell.
Jason Arcemont, the marketing maverick, gives expertise to business owners, serial entrepreneurs, and anyone interested in building a stronger company brand.
Creating a brand is like telling a story. You've got one shot to say it all.
When your marketing works, you've got them on the hook.
They let us back in the studio. We're doing it once again. This show is called The Hook. It's a business solution for your everyday company needs, helping you increase your presence and your return on investment. My name is Josh Reno, the marketing specialist at Brightbox Brand Marketing, along with the marketing maverick who had a little bit too much time on his hands last weekend for Thanksgiving. You texted me way too much, dude.
Oh, come on.
It's Jason Arcemont right there.
I get restless when we're not at work, man.
It seems like it. You texted me about things like, hey, you watching this football game? What's going on with this? And trying to catch up. And you know that I have kids. And not that you don't have kids, but
mine are older.
Yours are so much easier to deal with. Can we trade one weekend? I have a 4 and a 9-year-old. And
not
your kids
happen.
are like, your youngest kid is how old?
13. Yeah, 13 through 18. I got 4 of them, man. So it's a busy house, but yeah, it's a different chapter of my life right now with where they are.
The fact that you have all of this going on with work and every business venture that you're in, and then you have the kids and then your wife, and you got a lot, and you're working out. You got a lot going on already.
Stay busy.
But you were talking to me about the football stuff because we have a great guest coming on this week.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Today we've got Oliver Luck coming on the show. For those of you who don't know,
how could you not know who that is?
Yeah. Those of you interested in college football, Oliver Luck is the NCAA regulatory VP. I don't know what that position's called. I guess it's a chair. I think it's a chairman of something.
Well, here's what happens is that after the football games are played on the weekend for college, then they decide who's going to be ranked and what order they're going to be ranked in. Unfortunately for me, I wish that I could talk to him about LSU being ranked in the top 4, but...
Well, they're also in charge of like regulatory stuff, like what students coming from where. Yeah. There's a big issue out of Kansas right now, so we're going to talk with him about all that stuff.
Dude, it's not only about the college football rankings, but for me it is.
That's really all I care about right now.
And of course, he was a Houston Oiler, and I think one of the things that we really are going to concentrate on with him is talking about his involvement in bringing the Dynamo over. And,
That's right.
And him being he was the general manager, correct?
He was the president.
The president.
I mean, he may have started out as GM, but I know for at least 2 or 3 years he was president of the entire organization. So
and that huge success. So that's the business side of all this. Of course, we kind of geek out because, I mean, he played football here.
Yeah, when we have guests we like, it's kind of
we try
like
not
business
to,
aside, but yeah, we're gonna reel it back in.
We're gonna try not to geek out too much, but he's coming up on the show a little bit later in about 25-30 minutes from now. So we'll be excited to talk to him in this segment. Brought to you by Shadowbox Talent.
Yeah, Shadowbox Talent is our HR outsourcing group. If you're tired of just like figuring out payroll taxes, insurance regulations, employee manuals, how to do the hiring, what wages to start at, doing reviews, all of that stuff is things that Shadowbox Talent can help you with. You can check them out at shadowboxtalent.com. Just a phenomenal group. I know for me, whenever I first started this company with Gary and Callie, I mean, it really saved my butt. Kind of like the CYA, right? Cover your covering it. Yeah, because what it did for me was starting to look at my business in kind of a grown-up way, right? Trying to formalize and set some processes. I mean, I had several companies already, and we were doing really good with revenue, but there's always going to be kind of a ceiling, a financial ceiling that you can get to, a success ceiling that you can get to if you don't start getting very structured and organized and kind of processizing what it is you do as an organization. And for me, the HR portion of our company was really the first step in kind of stepping up into the big boy leagues and saying, okay, we're going to have an HR director, that is being facilitated by Shadowbox Talent, and really looking at all
covering
levels
your
of
assets.
Yeah, covering my assets. There you go. But this level of operation, like looking through my entire organization, starting with the HR and looking through the entire organization, really helped me grow the business. Required me to look at all aspects of my business. I mean, and if you're listening and you find yourself stuck and you're at a ceiling, then it's probably time to take some intentional thought in your business. I posted this the other day on Facebook, and I got some feedback. I had a couple people, direct message me about it. So many times when I go out and I'm consulting and I'm giving business advice to clients, they're asking me for new business strategy. They're asking me for marketing tips. They're asking me for like this magic thing that's going to help turn their company around. And a lot of times whenever I start digging into their operation, I go out, spend a day or two with them, I realize that there's nothing wrong with the strategy. There's nothing wrong with the marketing and the way that they want to go to market. What's wrong is that their plate's too full. They got too much stuff on their plate, and they're not able to, efficiently, effectively anyways, delegate what it is they need to do. And so they don't have time to think intentionally about their business. So, I thought maybe we'll just go through a little exercise here. Let's, I'll kind of take you through the steps that I would normally take somebody through.
So we're doing this live, for real?
Yeah, right here, right now. We're going to see if this works. We don't have a whiteboard in here.
Sorry.
We need a bigger studio.
Yeah.
So let's start with this. If you're listening and you've got an organization, you've got your company, and you've been in business a while, maybe you're hitting a ceiling, you're feeling like your growth has stopped. Let's kind of clear the slate for a minute as far as how operational things are done, the people, the team, how your whole organization. I know you have loyalty to staffs. If you're like most small businesses, you may have 2 to 20 employees or something, and everybody does a lot of different things. Well, let's kind of wipe that off the board. And the very first thing I always start with is I look at kind of the processes of the business, like a high-level corporate workflow. Like, how does the communication work? How does the flow of business go through your organization? And kind of write it out on the board or on a sheet of paper in like kind of pillars. Like, okay, it starts with a lead coming in. From that lead, it goes to a salesperson, or maybe it's the lead first goes to a receptionist, and then it goes to a salesperson, then it goes to process management, and then to quote. Whatever it is, kind of write out the flow of that work, ideally how it should go. And again, don't think about your current business, right? So many times, like we kind of, mold things to the people that we have on staff, and I want to kind of wipe all that out of your mind. So write that out as if you're starting from scratch, brand new day all over again. And then I want you to look at, from an organizational standpoint, as far as personnel, kind of create an org chart. Put titles to jobs, not people's names, titles of positions next to each of those, kind of that flow chart of processes that are going on. Because what that does is so many times we have employees that are molded over a year or 2 or 3 or 5, and all of a sudden they've got these kind of obscure job titles and roles, which is going to lead to them being disgruntled and unhappy and uncertain about what they're doing and what their role in the company is. And so this process is going to help you kind of clarify some of that, especially leading up into the new year.
And it helps on their business card too.
Yeah. What's your title? And you got like everything listed on there. Well, we don't do titles because I'm responsible for everything. Yeah. So start with your processes, then go through your personnel, add some job descriptions next to each one of those things, and then really start breaking apart the groups, the 3 main groups, at least that I look at. That's 1, the personnel. 2, I want you to start looking at your accounting. How can you do a better job of accounting? Like, this is a real moment of truth, especially for our small business guys. I know we just kind of glaze over this. We assume it's going to take care of itself. But do you have an actual process for making sure that from the quoting of a project to estimating to invoicing to wrapping it up to doing all the supplemental invoicing, whatever it may be, do you have an actual process for tracking every single job, every single hour that's in place? And that's what I mean when I talk about accounting. It's not just filing your taxes at the end of the year. Do you have a financial tracking system within your organization that every penny is being tracked down to the penny, right? So write that out. Get yourself a good plan. If you got detailed questions on any of these things, guys, go to the website and hit me up at
Please
The Hook
do.
Radio. We're getting great emails from you guys now. I try to respond to all of those, Josh or I. But thehookradio.com, shoot us a message on any of these points. I'd be more than happy to help kind of walk you through, kind of detailed implementation. So once we kind of go through the accounting, then we want to look at the branding and the marketing. You could see those as 2 separate groups, but maybe just for this lack of time here, look at the branding and the marketing. Do you look the way you want to look? Start thinking about your organization in a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. Do you look the way that you want to look when you grow up? How do we need to present ourselves to get to that next level of revenue, those next dollar signs? What do they look like? What kind of organization do we need to be? And from a branding and from a marketing standpoint, are you doing that? And then finally, the big key here is going to be an implementation tactic. The number one problem with most marketing, with most business strategies, with most anything, people have great ideas. It's kind of like the pothead thing, right? They sit around, they have great ideas, but they don't ever do anything. They don't implement it. So you got to have an implementation strategy. How are you going to do this? How are you going to hold yourself accountable? Because I know as a small business owner, it's tough. You're making some money. You're the boss, of your world. Everybody says yes to you. Right, Josh? Josh is like, Josh rolling his eyes. So you need to build in some accountability, whether that's identifying some key players on your team who will hold that plan responsible and be, responsible for that plan anyways. Family members, friends, whatever you can do to build some accountability to that. And I promise if you go through this exercise, you'll find ways to change the way that you've been doing things, formalize it, and get yourself teed up and ready for this next season.
The reason I was rolling my eyes is I was trying to think about all the really successful potheads I knew that did come through with ideas. There's a lot of them, bro.
There's a lot of ideas.
There's some.
They probably found somebody sober to help implement.
Yeah, look at Doug Benson. He's got a podcast and everything, and that guy's making a killing. And
yeah,
there's a ton more.
That's a podcast. This radio stuff's easy, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, we got more coming up next. Says Jason Arcemont, the Marketing Maverick. I'm Josh Reno. Always find us on thehookradio.com. We love your emails. And to sign up for the newsletter, do that at the website. Business tip of the day on the way next on The Hook. It's hard to believe we're in the last month of 2015, right? It's crazy. We are The Hook. You're listening to a marketing and branding and overall business show. That's Jason Arcemont. He's the Marketing Maverick. I'm the sidekick, the guy that he tells what to do. I'm like, am I your Tonto a little bit?
I don't know about Tonto. Okay. It just makes me think of that Lone Ranger skit where he got bit by the snake. But,
sorry.
Yeah.
My name is Josh Reno. I work with Brightbox Brand Marketing, a company that Jason owns. He's a CEO and president. And what other titles have you given yourself by this point? Just
janitor, whatever, yeah, right whatever comes up.
We actually did have that the other day. Yeah. We're having to clean up the place, but that's okay. We do everything. So this is brought to you by The Work Lodge. We're going to get into our business tip in just a few minutes, but those guys really know what they're doing, and you're there a lot, it seems like.
Well, we just finished up a workshop over there, which had great success, good turnout. I think we had almost 50 people show up for a little Thursday evening brand mapping 101 session that we did, and yeah, they are successful. I think they're just amazing. I mean, if you're a small business and you're currently working out of your home or you're in some shared workspace, I challenge you to go look at this place and tell me that this isn't a better solution for you. I mean, it's just hands down the best shared workspace I've ever seen.
They have a slide. They have a disco ball.
Yeah.
I mean,
they've got like beer Fridays. They got kegs, free coffee. And it just looks good.
Did you say they have kegs? Really?
Yeah. Yeah. That's how they do their beer Friday. I was there the other night.
Wow.
Yeah. No, Mike, the owner over there, really rolls it out, man. I mean, and aside from that, I mean, those things are all cool. But like, if you just need a work environment where you feel confident to bring in clients, you can have a meeting and still feel like you're professional, you are a company. Mm-hmm. Maybe you need to start, interviewing some employees. This is a perfect spot. It's affordable. It's month to month if need be. It's just a great solution.
I just had that conversation with a friend of mine the other day who works from home for the most part because he's a writer, and he said the hardest thing is that whenever you are at home all the time, that you really find it difficult to find inspiration.
Yeah.
And you find it difficult to do your job because there's everything else going on.
Yeah.
Maybe the kids come home early from school, or the dogs are barking, or it could be anything. Or Judge Judy is on. Yeah. That's a big problem.
Judge Judy. You got to turn that off. I've written a couple books. I can't imagine like being at home, you're just getting into the meat of it, and all of a sudden the kids start storming through the door and you had no idea they were going to be home at 1:30 that day. Yeah, that's tough.
It's difficult.
Yeah, well, you need to send your buddy to the Work Lodge.
That's exactly what I did. And
good. Okay, good.
I told him to go talk to Mike over there because it really is like the perfect setting because you're talking to other people that are around too because it's that shared workspace.
Yeah, it's almost like an incubator environment.
Yeah, it's the like-minded individuals.
Yeah, there you go.
So we're coming through the end of 2015 and probably people are starting thinking about, well, did my New Year's resolution go well from 2015?
Yeah, and sizing up their success.
And should I have one for 2016?
It's got to lower the bar a little bit if you didn't get it.
Yeah, so it's kind of a time to reorganize your head.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We were just the segment before we were talking about reorganizing the company and kind of getting it ready. But, so many times it's not just about what business owners, maybe if you're, somewhat self-employed, like a sales guy or, a business owner, but it's also, like mentally, where are you at going into the new year? I wrote a lot about this in my book, Your Spot on the Mountain, which, you guys go check it out. It's on Amazon. Just search my name, Jason Arcemont, or Your Spot on the Mountain. You'll find it.
How do you spell your last name? Because I get that a lot of times. Okay, what's the spelling again?
It's Succes. It's AR.
Funny guy.
Arcemont. Jason Arcemont.
So it's pretty much how it sounds. But
yeah.
Anyway.
So check out that book. It's a great guide. I kind of wrote it as a field guide to just establishing your personal success. What does success mean to you? Where's your spot on the mountain, so to speak, going to be? Are you going to be at the top? You're more than welcome to go get it. Just be aware of what that environment is. Maybe you need to come a couple steps down, a couple 100 feet down from the summit, and it'd be a more relaxing place where you can spend time with friends and family. The oxygen is rich, and there's room to run around and hang out with friends and family. So get a copy of that book. It's a great guide. One of the things that I take people through in that book is kind of, there's a couple steps. One, it's kind of converting your dreams into goals, right? So many times we talk about, I've got a dream for this, I got a dream for that. But, I just hate that. I don't even like vision boards all that much because I feel like it's so disconnected. I mean, a dream in its definition is a non-reality. It's something that does not or cannot come true. And so I don't like to live by dreams. And I think just a small difference in changing those dreams into I have a goal to write a book, or I have a goal to take my company to the next level, or a goal to streamline my processes internally.
That's a good point. I've never really thought about that. Whenever you have a dream, that's not something that you're conceptualizing to come through.
Yeah. Oh.
So you have to make it into that goal.
Right. Because a goal has a plan. There's steps to achieve it, right? If you just have a dream to have a Lamborghini, okay, well, that's great. Have that dream. You can also dream to have a unicorn, right? Neither one of those things are going to come true.
I saw one on the internet the other day, though.
Okay, well, that kind of counts. Maybe you did have a poster of a unicorn in your office with the ring.
I have a lot of things in my office.
Or no, that was just a horse head.
That's a horse head.
A horse head, yeah, okay.
It's my costume that I wear. It
when
seems like every other Friday.
For Brightbox.
Yeah, so we did videos the other day. I wanted to put the horse head on. He wouldn't let me. Anyway, I'm getting you sidetracked here.
Yeah, that's all right. That's part of that getting mentally focused for 2016, right? So first step is convert those dreams into goals. A lot of us business owners have already done that. We kind of instinctively do that. We're kind of goal-oriented, task-oriented. But it's really important to think about that going into the new year. As you're cleaning up your company, you're just getting focused on more revenue. Take the time to really think about where do you actually want to be. Is this a lifestyle company? Is this a investment opportunity? Are you looking to sell this company? Are you wanting to merge with somebody else? Are you wanting to go out and acquire other companies? All these things have different types of structures and, long lead time sometimes to develop a reputation or a brand or, just momentum to lead into those things. So really set aside the goal, be clear and very, very clear, write it down, be clear on what that goal is, and then start looking at the strategy. What is it going to take to actually roll that dream out? All of the touch points, all the tactics, what kind of staff are you going to need? Do you need to get an investment into your organization, a new piece of equipment or a CNC machine or a 3D printer or, some, by the way, I really want to get one of those 3D printers.
Do you?
I mean, I have no need for it, but I'm pretty sure Brightbox needs one. So be looking for that coming 2016. I want a 3D printer, man.
Will it print new flooring for my house?
Man, yeah, of course. It'll print anything.
See, I'm so limited because
it'll print a fork. Like, a few more years, we won't even need to buy silverware. You just hit the print fork thing. And
does it look like I need a fork? If you've never seen a picture of me, I don't need a fork.
Chopsticks, baby.
I just need to stop eating.
It'll slow the roll down if you only had to eat with chopsticks. Yeah. So, set that strategy up. And again, I said this last segment, and I mean it in all sincerity. You guys go to the website, thehookradio.com, and shoot me an email. If you're getting stuck on this, if you're getting stuck on life planning, business planning, strategy, rollout, tactics, man, you guys just shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to share some tips with you and get you pointed in the right direction. This is really my passion, is to share these things with you. I've started 8 or 9 companies now over the past 7 years, several of which have grown to be Inc. 500, fastest growing companies in the United States. I've kind of got a formula for this thing. I don't want to toot my own horn here, but
you think you got it figured out?
Yeah, toot, man.
A little something.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm building $100 million companies yet, but I got a goal for that, right?
Yeah.
And that's coming. And I'm confident that we're taking the steps to get to where I want to go with these companies. But I've been able to prove to myself and to my investors and to my partners that I can take an idea and turn it into a profit center fairly quick.
So after you set the strategy, is that pretty much it? You
no,
just
I
shut
think,
it off?
Nah, no. For me, what I always do, especially with business owners and marketing folks who tend to be very mentally strong and stubborn, is I challenge you to write down 3 weaknesses. Identify what your weaknesses are. If anybody knows me and has conversations, I'm very transparent about what I'm not good at. And sometimes I'll get kind of these looks from folks that are like, oh my goodness, really? He's going to say he's not good at that? But it's the only way that I can grow. It's the only way that I can surround myself with the resources, the people, the tools, the strategies to support what it is I suck at, And I think that's difficult to do, and to be honest with yourself that you're not amazing in all areas of business. So write those down, really drill into yourself, and challenge yourself to write out 3 key weaknesses, because you're going to need to beef up the strategy in those areas.
I had that the other day where I was talking to one of our clients, and I said, what do you think your weaknesses are? And he said, we don't have any.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
So I didn't say anything. I just sat there for a minute. It was quiet. He's like, well, to tell you the truth, and you start thinking there are weaknesses. Everybody has weaknesses. You can't think of them right away, but there are key areas that you really have to consider.
If you're sitting there, that means he's got a weakness in his branding or marketing department. If he called you in to help,
and we're going to change all that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So once you get those weaknesses, then you can go back and kind of revisit the strategy, make sure you got the things in place, and then one of the big parts here is so many people wait until January to start building out the tools they need, the resources they need, doing the hiring, because they're like, oh, well, there's going to be a vacation in December. We don't want to waste a week of employment, start hiring the right people now. Guys, get the tools built now. Get the resources you need now. You're going to be a month ahead of schedule. Come January, everybody's firing. Clients are emailing. Everybody's wanting to hit the ground running. You're going to be bombarded. These ideas, these plans are going to get pushed to the back burner. So get those resources built early enough to actually get them. And then the last one is that accountability. If you're getting new goals, like big level goals, not just your processes, like we talked in the last segment, you still need some level of accountability to that, because this is going to be your ultimate thing of, just your happiness. So don't bottle this up. Don't be, scared or ashamed or whatever to let people know. Maybe your goals are going to be a little bit smaller than what they were in the past, but those are going to make a happier life for you. Share those with your team, share them with your family, your friends, get it out there, make sure you're accountable.
You ended right on time, because we have a guest that's on the phone that's going to talk to us in just a minute.
Let's do it.
Oliver Luck coming up next. We'll talk to him about business and sports. Yes. You're listening to The Hook.
This is for all you sophisticated ladies out there.
You're back listening to The Hook. My name is Josh Reno, along with the Marketing Maverick. That's Jason Arcemont. You can always find us online, thehookradio.com. And you ready for the guest?
Let's do it. It's a good one.
Very excited about this, because this guy has done so much for Houston. Not only in that he played football for the Oilers, but he brought the Dynamo here. Now on the NCAA Regulatory Committee. We have our guest on the phone. It's Oliver Luck. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Happy to be on.
Well, I think unless you've been living under a rock, in some sense you probably know who Oliver Luck is. But Oliver, maybe I'd love to hear from your perspective. What are the highlights of your career as you would describe it?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm not sure there are any highlights in particular, but I've been fortunate to find myself in a number of different situations, with different interesting jobs. The first one really, quite honestly, right out of college, being a quarterback for the old Houston Oilers. It's every kid's dream to play in the NFL. At least every kid's dream who plays high school football or college football. So that was a fun experience. That was really my first exposure to Houston, and I've been fortunate to be a part of the stadium construction in Houston with Minute Maid Park and Reliant/Energy Field, and of course the Rockets building, and then being able to run the Dynamo. So I've been very fortunate to have lots of connections over the years to Houston, and I guess all of those are somewhat memorable. It's hard to pick one that would be particularly interesting. I suppose if I had to do it, it would be, back as an Oiler, because that's just such a unique opportunity to play professional sports. So
while you were the Oiler quarterback and you were thinking about what the future held for you, how did you have that in your mind? Okay, this is not going to last forever. I'm not going to be
or
70.
Did it? You know, I mean, does that run through your mind? Yeah. I mean, were you thinking back then, hey, this is going to last forever, or were you trying to set up yourself professionally?
No, I think anybody that plays in the NFL realizes that, amongst other things, NFL can stand for not for long.
Right.
It's a very tough, business. It's even harder now. I mean, I watch it now with my son playing. It's a physical business. Your careers are short. I was a backup quarterback. I also was very realistic about my skill set. I played behind Warren Moon. Pretty obvious to see Warren was a much better player than I was. So, I think a lot of players, myself included, you get in for a couple of years and you realize how challenging it is. So you start to think about, what do I want to do, after football. In some cases that happens, quickly. Other cases, some guys play 10, 12, 15 years. But I always believe in education, and so I decided I'd go to law school and, continue my education, and that would open up some doors, which it absolutely did. So I don't think I'm unique at all in that sense. Most guys really realize once they're in it for a couple of years of how tough it really is,
right.
And how risky it is in terms of, physical ailments, right? Knee, shoulder, concussion, you name it. It's hard to stay healthy and have a long career in that sport. So, like many guys, I began to think very quickly, okay, what can I do to take advantage of, the free time that I have and make good use of it.
So it was going back to law school for you then? Huh? I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, no. So I spent my off seasons going to law school, both at South Texas College of Law during the season, and then up in Austin at the University of Texas, during the spring semester. So, I was one of those guys that used the time, I think, pretty wisely. A lot of guys would, go play golf. Some guys went back and finished their undergraduate degree. Some guys were working on master's degrees, but some guys were working, because they really weren't paying us that much money way back in the early 80s, but
not like it is today, is it?
No, it's changed a lot. It really has, and I think it's changed for the better, quite honestly. But that's what guys did. In fact, when I was playing for the Oilers, they had a guy on staff who helped find off-season jobs for players.
Wow.
And that wasn't just to make money; it was also to sort of prepare yourself, for a future career, right, stockbroker or whatever. But a lot of guys, quite honestly, needed the money. Salaries back then were $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and
oh my goodness.
So.
Yeah, he definitely needed something else to rely on. I think one of the kind of the intriguing things about your careers, as I look back on the things you've done, was your time with the Dynamo. How did that come up? How did that kind of evolve for you into the role? And I mean, you led the organization as president for, was it 2 or 3 years? How long were you there?
I was there for 5 years. So
5, okay. Wow.
The short story is this. I was running the Harris County Houston Sports Authority, and that is the organization, charged with building, a new football stadium, a new baseball stadium, and a new basketball, / hockey arena. And effectively, we did that, and we sort of took care of the venues, and they're very important, obviously, for pro sports teams. We took care of the venues for the Texans, the rodeo, the Rockets, the Astros, the minor league hockey team at the time, et cetera. The one sport that Houston didn't have at that point was soccer. Right? We had a minor league hockey team, didn't have an NHL team, but had a minor league team. But there was no professional soccer in the city, and this was a city-county entity, the sports authorities. So I convinced my bosses, who were publicly appointed officials, I said, listen, we should make an effort to go find a Major League Soccer franchise. Houston's a very dynamic city. We're very ethnically diverse. We've got lots of Latinos. People like soccer. The Anglos like soccer. African Americans like soccer. Latinos like soccer. Everybody likes soccer. It's the world's game. So I convinced my bosses that it would be worthwhile to sort of make an effort to try to attract a franchise. There were 2 existing franchises at the time, one in Kansas City and one in San Jose, that were both struggling financially. They couldn't get venues built. And so we talked to both of those franchises. We ended up, attracting the San Jose franchise to move down to Houston. And, that was the old San Jose Earthquake. Of course, we changed the name to the Houston Dynamo, and, the rest is history. But after we brought the franchise down, the owners of the franchise, who were based in Los Angeles, asked me to run the team. So I ran it for 5 years.
Man, Well, listeners, if you're just tuning in, we have our guest Oliver Luck on the phone with us today. We're excited to be talking with him about kind of his legacy of his career that he's led. I mean, so many different things. You wouldn't think from going from football to soccer to now you're at the college level with NCAA. How did that progression into the NCAA take place?
Well, so I was in Houston running the Dynamo, and my alma mater is West Virginia University. It's where I went to college, undergraduate, and where I played football. And I was on their board of trustees. We hired a new president at West Virginia. He then asked me to become the athletic director at the school. We were going through a pretty significant transition. College athletics, this was 2010, college athletics was going through a pretty significant transition. There was also a sort of a big issue out there, college football realignment that was happening that had a serious effect on us. Long story short, the president asked me if I would consider becoming the athletic director, which I did, and did that for 5 years. I told him I'd give him 4 or 5 years, to try to make a number of changes that we needed to make, within the athletic department. And that worked out very well. So that position, right, in college athletics as an athletic director led me to the position here at the NCAA.
What are your business wins? What do you feel like in business that was your overarching talent that you brought into the business world?
You're absolutely right about needing business skills when you're in the sports business, right? Because the sports business is a business. It's unique like every other business. It's got its quirks and all that, but you really need to have, fundamental business skills that can help, and even at the NCAA, I'm not responsible for a business unit, right? I'm not selling tickets or selling sponsorships or cutting TV deals like I did when I was with the Dynamo or the 10 years I worked for the NFL, but I have to be very cognizant because money is very important, right? And money drives most decisions. So even with what I do now, I need to sort of keep my finger in the business money space, if you will, within athletics. I don't know necessarily what skills are helpful, but I think I'm a pretty analytical person. I like to ask why. I like to ask questions to find out, why people are doing things. Is there a different way to do it? Is there a better way to do it? Is there a more efficient way to do it? As an example, and this is a small thing, but it's money. When I was the AD at West Virginia, we started to sell beer at our home football games.
Wow,
I'm a fan of that.
A&M just started that, right?
Anybody who's a beer drinker is a fan of that. But and a lot of schools are starting to do that, and that was a somewhat controversial thing because most undergraduates at a college are under 21, so they're not of age to drink. Yeah. But you also have a lot of older folks that go to college football games. The students are actually a small sliver. We did a bunch of research, talked to the local police force. There were a lot of reasons to do it. Long and short, we did it. Took a little bit of heat, but not too much. We did it, and that generates to this day. It's been going on now for about 5 seasons or so. That generates about $600,000-$700,000 a year.
Wow,
an extra revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though we took a little bit of criticism for it, sometimes in business you got to be able to take a little bit of heat, make a decision.
Yeah.
It may not be the most popular decision, but ultimately it's a good financial decision. And now, if you polled the fans of West Virginia University, the Mountaineer football fans who go to games, I would imagine 70% would say, yeah, it's great that we're selling beer. We'd be upset if they took it away, because people go to a game and buy a, $10 Bud Light or whatever. And, they expect that, and so part of it is also knowing what expectations do fans have? How can we better meet those expectations? And being, having a little bit of courage, if you will, to make some of those tough decisions that others may be sort of afraid to make because it will take some heat.
And really in business overall, it's about taking those risks. So you did that, and that was a good payoff in that situation for sure. So, well, we're coming up to the end of this segment, and we got to get into a break. Will you hang out with us for one more segment?
Sure.
Can you do that? All right. Thanks so much. We have Oliver Luck on the line talking to us, and we'll get into some emails in just a few minutes. Jason Arcemont there. I'm Josh Reno. You're listening to The Hook.
There's something about a truck in a farmer's field.
You're listening to The Hook, a business, marketing, branding show, and now we're talking a little bit of sports here and there because we have Oliver Luck on the line.
Kind of hard not to, right?
Yeah. It's a little bit difficult to not get into it. And whenever we announced that you were going to be on the show, we got a lot of questions for you, Oliver. If you'll answer maybe a few of these for us.
Yeah,
Sure.
and obviously these have a little bit more to do with kind of relevant things that are going on with NCAA. I think a lot of people are asking about the Ed O'Bannon case and how that's playing out. And, I'd love to hear your take on how you think that may or may not end up playing out.
Well, that case right now, from a legal perspective, is at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The Ninth Circuit issued a decision about 3 or 4 months ago. That decision is under review, by the full appellate court. So the legal case hasn't fully played out. It may or may not end up at the Supreme Court. But I will say this: the O'Bannon decision has really forced the NCAA, the membership, right? We got 351 Division I schools, another 400 or something Division II schools, Division III as well. It's forced the NCAA to really take a hard look at some of the things that we're doing, and it's resulted in a lot of what I would call positives for student athletes. So, for example, just starting this past year, back in September, schools, at least the big schools, are paying the full cost of attendance. That's a stipend. And that stipend is worth $3,000, $4,000, in some cases $5,000 for students. So they're getting that cash in hand. It's not a salary, it's a stipend that schools are providing to kids. So that really was generated, from the concern that people had that student athletes, as evidenced by the O'Bannon suit, felt like they were sort of getting the short end of the stick. So the O'Bannon case has really prompted, I think, some very positive, proactive steps that the NCAA, the membership, has taken. We've gotten rid of all the restrictions on nutrition, on food, right? So, you can theoretically, you can hang a bag of oats around a kid's neck so that he's constantly
grow.
Fed, right? yeah, right? Because, these kids work out hard. Think about swimmers and others. They burn, thousands of calories with their workouts. Right. So that's helped, better health care, guaranteed scholarships. That's another issue that came out of many of these lawsuits that we said, all right, it's not just a 1-year scholarship that's renewable every year, but it's a 4-year or in some cases 5-year guarantee. So I'd have to get very specific about the O'Bannon lawsuit and where it sits in terms of procedure. But the message I think for folks is that the concern from the membership, about, gosh, maybe we really do need to do more for our student athletes has been heard, and things have been implemented that I think at the end of the day are really, really positive for young people.
Yeah, I always kind of ride on that fence, and it's not my world. I'm not a huge college sports guy, but I see that if an organization is making money due to the efforts in the display or the sportsmanship or the entertainment value that these students are bringing, that seems like there should be something there. But then again, I'm kind of on that other side where I'm like, you should be going there for an education, and this isn't just a mill, but it's a tough one.
And I think most people are probably like you are, sort of on the fence. So, what I would say is this, a scholarship in terms of the academics is absolutely worth it. It's a great opportunity to get a 4 or 5-year degree and not have any debt, right? Everybody else is walking around with, mountains of student debt. There are other things that we've begun to do, like full cost of attendance, where you should be able to cover all of your costs. A lot of kids are on Pell Grants as well, even though they're on full scholarship. The one step that we're not prepared to take is to put student athletes on a salary.
Right. Okay.
Because that would change the relationship. Right now, it's coach student or professor student, and
they
we
should still be
believe
learning, right? This should still be.
Yeah, it's about learning. It's about education, taking advantage of that. If kids were employees, we'd have an employer-employee relationship, and I think the vast majority of people, both on campus as well as in the general public, would say, that's not really kind of what college sports should be about.
And then what about
professional sports?
Ex-pros guys coming back to college?
That's right.
I guess it would really potentially flood the market, so to speak, of talent in those in the schools for sure.
Well, if kids were paid, basically, you'd have pretty poorly paid minor league players, right? And there's minor league sports, there's minor league baseball, hockey, the D League basketball. I don't think that's the space that college presidents, who ultimately run the NCAA, I don't think that's the space that college presidents want to be in, quite honestly. In fact, I know it's not.
Yeah.
It also goes back to how many, as far as all the colleges go, how many athletes are out there?
We've got, right now there are about 450,000 student athletes. That's divisions 1, 2, and 3.
And that's
a lot of people.
Isn't the statistic that less than 1% actually go on to play professionally?
Oh, yeah. I mean, really, at the end of the day, you've got a small group of basketball players, small group of football players, baseball players, hockey, et cetera, but it's less than 1%, right? So, and keep in mind that our economic system, right? When I was at West Virginia as the AD, we make money with football, we make money with basketball, men's basketball. We spend that profit, that excess, we spend that on the volleyball team, the swim team, the track team, the soccer team. None of those other sports make any money, right? So virtually every school is identical in that regard. So, when people say, hey, you're making a lot of money, I saw Alabama on TV, there's 90,000 people. You're right. The Alabama football team makes a lot of money, but Alabama spends that on the gymnastics team and the track team and everything else that doesn't make money, right? So, it's a socialistic system in many respects, but it's a system that has allowed schools to support lots of different sports. So it's not just the football or men's basketball. It's allowed us to comply with Title IX, right, the federal law mandating gender equity. It's allowed us it's given us funds to allow us to do all these great things with women's sports, and we're now, I think, the best in the world in our women's athletes and women's sports.
So one other question that came through from the listeners in getting ready for the show had to do in relation to all the stuff that's going on in Kansas with some of the students being reviewed. I don't know if you can weigh in on any of that stuff or not, Mr. Luck, but there was definitely some interest in a couple emails about how the NCAA would have kind of a higher interest in high school curriculum, but maybe not as much at the college curriculum.
Yeah, I mean, I could speak in some generalities because So what happened was 15, 20 years ago there was a sort of a rash of diploma mill schools, right? Okay. Schools that weren't really schools. They were storefronts or whatever, and that was inappropriate. Our membership was concerned about that. Very often they were, like holding pens almost for basketball players. So there was a big New York Times expose years ago about these diploma mills, and they weren't teaching kids. I mean, So we began started a group within the NCAA that reviewed high schools because we were concerned that kids would go to these schools, would be taken advantage of, right. Weren't receiving a proper high school education, a proper secondary education. So we still do that, and quite honestly, we have to ask ourselves: do we still want to be in that space? There still are some diploma mills. States shut down high schools all the time for various reasons. But, it's one of those things that we're looking at and asking, do we really want to be in that space? Chuck Diallo, who's the basketball player, student athlete at Kansas, went to one of those schools that was on a kind of an at-risk list. And that's really the primary reason that it took a while for him to get cleared to play. But I'll be very frank, it's one of those things that we're looking at and trying to decide, does it make sense to be in that space? High schools aren't our members, right? Colleges are members of the NCAA, but not high schools. So we all of a sudden find ourselves regulating a non-member.
Right. Yeah.
That's a question we have to ask ourselves. I'll leave it at that. So it's a very legitimate question.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be a tough one, because if it is truly just kind of a mill, then it's like, well, are these schools kind of playing agents and taking advantage? And then, if they did, then everybody be pissed at NCAA for not taking charge, and making sure these kids are protected. So I definitely see the flip side of that.
Yeah, but some people have said, hey, every state, all right, State Board of Education, authorizes, charters, whatever, recognizes schools. So, if a school is recognized by the state of X, state of Y, state of Z, should be good enough for us, right? So there's a variety of different arguments. We've got to see if it really just makes sense for us, because we're NCAA is not some huge organization. We're a relatively small shop. Do we have the people? Is that the right space for us to be in? Are we allowed legally to be in that space? Does it offer, is there legal exposure if we're in that space? But we're doing that because the colleges, the universities, our members have said, hey, we don't have the resources to, a school doesn't have the resources in its admissions department to check on 50 schools around the country that might be dodgy, So it's a complicated question, but it's a very complicated issue, but a very fair question from the listener.
Do you feel like the NCAA is marketed and branded the right way? Like, do you have any thoughts on how they do things from that side of I know that you're in a totally different area, but if you're looking at it, the organization as a whole, do you feel like it's done the right way?
I think by and large there's a lot of equity in the NCAA brand. When people think NCAA, they do think college sports. They may think that sometimes we're heavy-handed or we do stupid things. And we've done those heavy-handed and stupid things in the past, no question about it. I'm sure we'll do some of those in the future. But by and large, I think people equate the NCAA, with the group that regulates college sports. Nobody likes a regulator, right? You don't like the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. If you're a stockbroker, you don't like the Securities and Exchange Commission, right? Nobody likes a regulator until you need one. You don't like the police force until you need a cop, right? So, any regulating body, and that's exactly what we are. Any regulating body is there to sort of make sure that the rules are followed. But effectively, we pass the rules that our membership wants. So I think most folks generally understand that, but I think, when people think of college athletics, they don't necessarily think of the blue disc, the NCAA blue disc. They think of they think of Alabama football or UConn men's basketball or, Texas soccer or whatever, right? They think of those teams that they really support, where I went to my alma mater, et cetera. And those are typically very positive feelings, right? Because people love to support their college teams.
And don't forget about McNeese State University in Lake Charles.
I won't forget about the Cowboys, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, there you go.
Baby.
Man of the people. Love it. I love it. Well, Mr. Luck, I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. I appreciate your time and your transparency and sharing your career with us and some of the things that you've learned in your positions. I know our listeners are just going to be thrilled. I'm already getting emails now from folks. So, again, I thank you so much for carving out some time for us. And, thanks so much.
All the best. Thanks.
And that's a wrap, folks.
That's it. I can't believe that was an amazing interview as far as I'm concerned, because he knew who McNeese was.
Yeah. And the listeners are going to love it. He answered very directly about some things that I think, was good. Our listeners can't be unhappy with that. So, man, if you like that one, you guys got to keep tuning in. We're going to continue to bring great guests for you. Next week, we are revisiting our folks with Offshore Magazine and the U of H. They're coming back to talk with us about their online learning center that they've started up.
Don't forget, you can always find the show, even in the back shows, up on our websites. It's thehookradio.com. We'll see you next week. That's Jason Arcemont. My name is Josh Reno on The Hook.